Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. If you would like to support this channel, please hit the like button and consider subscribing if you enjoy the content. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called The Correct Way to Order Food. My husband's old job was extremely picky about expenses. Several people from his office were sent to a half-day conference on the other side of the state, so with the travel time, they were allowed to claim reimbursement for lunch. They stopped at Arby's, I think, and he got a couple of things off the dollar menu. Fries, a sandwich, a drink, that kind of thing. And then, to dip the fries, he got a 25-cent cup of cheese dip. I'm sure it was plasticky and mediocre, but I try not to judge the man for his taste. Anyway, he got back and filed his reimbursement for like $4. Several days later, he was called into accounting to explain why he thought this cheese cup was a reasonable expense, as it was not part of his meal. Apparently, the unofficial policy was that you could reimburse a meal deal, but no extras. After a short argument, he convinced them to approve the 25 cents, but he was politely asked not to pull that again. So naturally, on any subsequent occasions they were out over mealtimes, he made it a point to get whatever supersized combo extravaganza was on offer, costing 2 to 3 times what he'd normally order. And accounting was like, that is the correct way to do food. The next story is called Need the Tents. I needed a new car. I had brought my car to the dealership because the brakes were making noise. Again, that car had always been a bit of a lemon. I had just had the service department work on the brakes a couple of months earlier. When they got back to me this time, I found out that not only did I need $500 for more brake work, they wanted $1,500 to replace both of my front axles on a 5-year-old car, and another $750 for other general services too. I had had enough. I had never been fond of this car in the first place. There was no way I was dropping a couple of grand more into it. Oddly enough, this disaster of a vehicle is not the focus of the story, just the impetus that started it all. It's early 2022 and buying a new car is a nightmare. Thanks to supply issues, nobody has cars. The plus side was that used cars were worth far more than ever before, so I could get a great payout for the nightmare vehicle. I looked around, and to my surprise, I found one of the cars I wanted was due to be at a local dealership by early the next week. That made my decision for me. So on the 4th of the month, I sold them the car I detested and bought a new one. I left them the old keys and got a ride home with my wife, gleefully waiting for next week. I had a home office I could work from, but the hospital where I work really wanted us back in on site as much as we could be. My direct boss is a great guy. He told me that a few days working from home while I was carless was no problem. It turned into a problem when next week my car was still not there. It had made it off the ship but was stuck in some lot waiting for transport. Okay, the world's supply chains are a mess. What can you do? The dealership is great and they give me a loaner. Now I'm stressing a bit because the hospital parking garage has the tiniest parking spots and the loaner is a big beast. I'm terrified that this SUV, which is not mine, is going to be dinged or scratched and I'm going to have to pay for it. So for the rest of the week I drive all the way up to the top floors to find a corner spot that is wide enough for me to park with a reasonable sense of safety. It's only for a week or so, not a problem. Except it wasn't one more week. At the end of the week, still no car. At the end of the next week, still no car. I know this is such a trivial problem, considering what we had all just gone through. Still, I have to admit that being told day after day that the car I was so looking forward to was trapped on a lot less than 2 hours away was really starting to take the shine off this transaction. All through this, I didn't blame the dealership. The sales managers were awesome. My actual sales guy was kind of that fake too smiley stereotype, which is why whenever I stopped in or called, I spoke to the managers, if at all possible. Finally, on the 23rd, my car was delivered to the dealership. The funny thing is that my other choice arrived a week earlier. I'm ecstatic. My sales guy asked if I can pick it up that day. I can't. I had a ton of work during that day and my wife had classes that night and I needed her to sign with me. I suggested we do it the next day. Nope, the 24th was his day off. Now it had been weeks. Everything that could possibly be done was done and ready. I asked, can't I just sign with someone else? Nope, he had to be the one who handed me over to the finance guys personally. I had no idea why, but the sales guy was insistent that the sale cannot be finalized on the 24th. I point out I have waited all this time and not complained much, and that the 25th was not really good for my wife. Nope, no can do. Thankfully, my wife loves me dearly and took pity on me. She scrunched up her day to make time to get my new car on the 25th. So we signed the papers the next day in record time and she headed back to work. While I'm there afterward, the sales guy tells me that the woman who does the car walkthrough was out that day. I asked if she was in the day before, and of course she had been. He muddled through explaining features to me, but now I'm annoyed with him and wrap it up as quickly as I could. As I'm leaving, here's where he keyed up the malicious compliance. He told me, "You are going to get a survey in your email. I really need you to give me all 10s. Anything less hurts me and the dealership." I looked at him as I was getting into my new car to head home, and he repeated, "Please remember, all 10s. So after everything, those were the last words he left me with. I work doing research for my hospital. Data accuracy is a huge deal to me. I hate it when administrators waste nurses' time collecting bad data. So here was this guy telling me to give him perfect scores in a transaction that was far from perfect. To be fair, 90% of the problems they had no control over. And they really had done just about all they could with getting me a loaner and getting my wife in and out the door as quickly as possible. I honestly didn't mind giving 10s. What I absolutely hated was the fact he was coercing customers into perfect scores and thereby screwing the sales data. This was the beginning of a multi-year relationship with this dealership. After the nightmares of the previous car, I really did not want to start it off on the wrong foot, so I did the honest thing. I gave 10s, and in every one of the comment sections I explained how the dealership, especially the sales managers, had earned these scores. I also wrote that I really did not appreciate being pressed by the sales guy into giving 10s. I noted how I almost didn't give perfect scores, specifically because I loaded being told I had to. The next day I received a text from my sales guy that read, "I would have preferred no survey over that survey, but he got his 10s. Why was he mad?" I found out he left the dealership a few months later. I can't say I miss him. When I brought my car in for an oil change yesterday, I saw the sales manager again. He said he remembered my response. He had been a salesperson, so he knew about the must give 10s pitch. He also said until he read my comments, he hadn't considered that he might lose those scores because people hate being told what to do. He informed me he had talked with the sales team about it. I doubt they will change their methods much, but at least they will hopefully be a bit more tactful about it in the future. The last story is called "Don't Want Us There." There's this card shop I've been going to for probably a decade or so now. About 6 to 7 years ago, they were in the small plaza, just a bunch of storefronts next to each other, off a major road with a shared tiny parking lot. A lot of people like to hang around the shop for hours, playing games. We didn't buy things on the daily, but would drop serious money on stuff every so often. Not sure why it started, but the other stores, mainly the restaurants that were there, started complaining that we were taking up their parking spaces, which was causing them to lose customers. Then they complained that we were loitering since we didn't buy anything, even coming into the shop in person to complain. We rarely parked too far from the card storefront since we kept our stuff in our cars. But the shops even started giving us tickets for loitering in the plaza, putting them onto our cars. The card shop owner, who I know well from many games and hanging around, responded with, "Okay, we can't have loiterers," and made some changes to the shop. They have a game library, like a floor-to-ceiling of shelves of a wall in the back full of board games for people like kids to grab and play that kind of grew over the years. To use the wall now, you needed to pay $5, but with that you also get $5 credit for the store, which included a newly installed mini fridge full of $1 cans of pop and snacks like chocolate bars and chips. We kept the receipts in our pockets or on the table next to us to display when they came around to complain. The tickets were stopped after a while, since the landlord heard about it and had a talking to the owners, since he wasn't behind it. Also made it a point that the parking lot was for the plaza, not any specific storefront. We kept the receipts on hand still, almost like an inside joke. Even newcomers did it after a while. According to the store owner, the restaurants kept bugging him about things, from something he threw in the dumpsters to parking his car in the back. Basically trying to push him out, because the customers weren't the right kind. Pretty sure more stereotyping than factual. So when the lease was up, he was out and moved to another plaza about a 10-minute ride away from their first location he had secured months before the lease ended. Here's the thing about this card shop. It was very family friendly. We may get loud, but we never curse and just ushered people who get wild up outside for cool down. When the shop moved, so did the customers. But not sure why these restaurants didn't know or notice. and so did their most frequent customers. Many of us bought our meals from these restaurants due to the convenience of it, and the selection of food was decent. The food itself wasn't that good, but this was before food deliveries like Uber Eats were a thing. Nowadays, when I drive by the plaza en route to the shop, I chuckle. They definitely don't need to worry about a full lot. Maybe a quarter full nowadays. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and want to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.